Man, there's nothing worse than when a game sits on a table and people don't even look at it. Like, I'm here playing so that you come look at me and think I'm really cool.
That's what we do it for.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph, and yes, we're going to talk about games that we feel have amazing table presence.
Yes, which is, let's be honest, in the grand scheme of things, not that important, but it is somewhat important. It's lovely when you're walking around a convention, you're like, whoa, what is that? That looks really, really cool.
It pulls you in, you know what I mean? It captures your attention and stuff.
It's like a movie poster or something like that. You're like, whoa, what's that movie? It's just like, it's important to have these things, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. So there are a bunch of awesome looking games. We're really in an age now where games more often than not do have a lot of table presence and look really beautiful, which is awesome. And these are going to be some for us and our money, for our personal taste. They really stand above the kind of rest of the field in terms of like, wow factor. A game that I find always pulls attention, and it's just got a great gimmick at the center of it, is Wavelength. This is a party game where you are going to be given a prompt with kind of two extremes. So from wet to dry or something, kind of two opposites. And there's this kind of cool dial mechanism in the middle that you are going to randomize. If I'm the one giving the clue, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to see kind of where my range is. If it's very, to one side, kind of right in the middle, over to the left. And then based on where that range is, I'm going to give a clue that hopefully points to that kind of part of the range. So, if it's halfway between the middle and the left, I need something that's going to be pretty on the wet side, but not the wettest thing ever, to try to get people to guess where in this kind of range the bullseye is. This is one that is cool because it literally stands up out of the box. You're kind of, spinning it around and stuff and picking it up, and I think it's just kind of fun. And then the discourse that's happening around the table as well, and the laughs that kind of come from this game because of the type of clue you give is really kind of open-ended and up to you. And so it creates this really interesting discussions around like how people think of things that I find really fascinating. So I find that this game inevitably attracts people around the table to kind of see what's happening.
Number 9 is going to be Sagrada. Here's the thing, Sagrada is just pretty. I'm honestly astonished there's not more games about stained glass, considering stained glass is so gorgeous, but Sagrada is. It's about making a kind of Sagrada de Familia big stained glass thing, and you're doing that with dice. These very pretty translucent dice. And it's kind of like Sudoku, where you're building out your little grid of dice, your little window, and you can't have like the same numbers in like rows and columns and those kind of restrictions that Sudoku has. This game has that as well, but you're gonna be drafting out these dice and putting them into your grid, and sometimes these grids will want certain values in certain spots, certain colors in certain spots. There are kind of some goals that you're going for as well, but what really comes down to is that it's a great game, but it's very, very pretty. The box is gorgeous. When this is on a table and you don't know what it is, you immediately are like, wow, everything looks like candy. It's beautiful. Like, what is this? It's not the biggest game in terms of like ostentatious production. There's not a giant tree like an Everdell or something like that, right? But it's just kind of low-key, gorgeous table presence. Not huge in ostentation. Just beautiful on the table. Makes people stop. Makes people ask what it is. And on top of that, it's a great game to boot.
Next up is going to be Tidal Blades. This game is just big and beautiful. It's really a game that has Mr. Cuddington art and a game that was designed out of the art and the world that was created. The team of artists behind Mr. Cuddington were kind of tasked with creating a world that they would like, just to explore artistically and stuff like that. So they created this really fun kind of amphibian world where there's these Tidal blades, which are sort of like American gladiators, and they, you know, are doing shows and stuff for people in this sort of water world, and you're on jet skis and stuff. And then Druid City Games built a big, cool game where you are playing as those different heroes, kind of leveling up your stats, fighting these monsters that are kind of coming in to crash the party, and do stuff through this kind of dice management. So this is a game where all the boards are essentially different little separate islands. And there's like a really cool dice tray that is, you know, with the game. You have these really beautiful player boards, and then the art and stuff is just so vibrant and blue and beautiful that it can't help but kind of catch the eye as it sort of, you know, takes over this giant table. And so, yeah, this is one that, like, you know, when the crowdfunding campaign happened many years ago for it, it was about, you know, like, we're going to do this thing up to the max. We're going to be super extra about it and make that dice tray because it's cool and stuff like that. And I think they ultimately really delivered a really cool product. And it is indeed a really fun kind of world. And I just love that kind of true collaboration between the artist and then designing a game that would pair beautifully with that kind of pre-existing theme.
Number 7 is going to be Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis will stop people in their tracks because it's just this cool 3D kind of tree-based game because it's based around photosynthesis, which is also how animals grow, how plants grow, and animals, who knows? No one knows. That's not true. So how plants grow, and so this is a game where you're going to start off with some trees on the board, but you basically are growing out trees, and it's an area control game, kind of a cutthroat one at that, because the plant kingdom is cutthroat, right? This plant doesn't care about that plant, they just want to grow. And so what you're doing in the game is you're growing up your trees, and every round the sun is going to be around the board, and it's going to be projecting sun in that direction. So trees then will cast shadows. And so if you have a bigger tree and the sun is coming this way and a bigger tree than a smaller tree behind it, the smaller tree will be in shadow and therefore will not get any sun. And sun in the game is your currency. That is how you're going to put out more seeds. That's how you're going to make those seeds grow into small trees. Those small trees to grow into medium trees, those medium trees to grow into big trees, and have those big trees ultimately fall over and die, which will give you a lot of different points. That is the game, and it's so good. This game is so simple. It's got a really great player aid that really like shows everything in the game. It's really wonderful, but then you just have these kind of like two-piece cardboard trees where it's like one piece, they kind of slot together, and they look really, really good. It also goes to show that you don't always need like big minis in a game. A lot of times, really well done cardboards kind of like slotting together look really, really good, and you kind of don't necessarily have to break the bank for this kind of table presence, because Photosynthesis is not a particularly expensive game, but it's got this really, really great table presence. I love Photosynthesis. This game was popular when it came out, but I feel like no one really talks about it anymore. It's really, really, really good, but it's got those beautiful trees and just a heck of a lot of table presence.
Next up is going to be Santorini. So it's not the biggest game and stuff, but it is a very cool board that kind of sits off the table a little bit in its original form anyway. And then you have what looks kind of like a chessboard. You have, you know, a grid of square spaces, and you're moving little pieces around. But then as soon as you start the game, it starts changing and not looking so much like chess, as you are going to be building up buildings and then climbing up on those buildings, hoping to build a complete building with the kind of classic Santorini blue domed roof to win. So as this game goes, it just literally grows off the table and gets taller and more kind of beautiful and interesting to look at, you know, with each new turn that goes by. And I just love how it looks. The pieces of the buildings and the way they kind of stack and nest together is super duper satisfying when you're playing. And it's just super cool looking, especially you know, from the time that it came out, being this abstract strategy kind of game, again, kind of chess-like or checkers-like, where you're moving pieces around, but then building up, you're adding, you can add god powers, which allow you to break certain rules, which I highly recommend playing with. It's just super duper cool looking. And again, as you're playing, the actual building of the buildings are very satisfying. And so it's really fun on the table, and it's something that's going to draw the eye in from people that are walking around.
Number 5 is going to be Wonderland's War. It is easy to have really good table presence when you got a lot of Manny Tremblay art. Manny Tremblay did the art for Wonderland's War, and it is very, very, very good. I love Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War is a game set in Wonderland, in Alice in Wonderland, and you are all going a little bit mad, as you tend to do in Wonderland, and everyone is fighting, and there are a bunch of different areas you're going to be fighting over, and this is a bag building game where you're going to have various troops and allies in a bag, these like lovely poker chips for the upgraded version, and you're going to be drawing them out and then playing that way. So it's kind of like Quacks and Quedlinburg if you were fighting each other. And so all of these chips will do different things. There are a whole bunch of them. You can kind of buy them as you go, and you're pulling them out and you're fighting. You're basically trying to have the most strength in a region. If you do, you will score a certain amount of points, and then we'll move to the next region, do the same thing there, keep going around until all the regions have scored. I believe you do that over 3 rounds. And the game has 2 phases. So the battle phase I just talked about is the second phase. The first phase is the tea party, where you're going to be going around this rondel getting these things. This is how you're going to get your new chips. This is how you're going to get like quests and kind of objectives that you can kind of go for, all that kind of stuff. So you're kind of building up your recruitment and then fighting. And then you build up your recruitment and then you fight. It's great. This game has just got great table presence. The original game, I think, had standees, but there are minis in the upgraded version that are really big and really wonderful and just pretty. Again, you have that Manny Tremblay art, which just looks so incredible on the board, on the table. It's just so good. Again, this is a showstopper, and it's meant to be.
Next up is going to be the Return to Dark Tower. This is the original Dark Tower from back in the day. Was also had some table presence, because in the original version and the new version from Restoration Games, there is a giant physical tower at the center of this cool circular board, depicting kind of the 4 regions of the kingdom. And everything you're doing is sort of going to be interacting with this tower, which is sort of like an ever-corrupting evil presence that is menacing you throughout the game. So it's just super cool to have something at the center of your table that lights up and makes sounds and it growls at you and stuff like that. And at times lights up, and then there are chambers in it, because ultimately this Dark Tower is a cube tower. Every turn you're going to be dropping little skulls into this tower, and occasionally things are going to shift and all that, and these skulls are going to come spilling out of the tower onto the board. You also have really cool buildings and minis and stuff that are running around as you're fighting stuff, but it's just so cool to have something that is kind of making its presence felt throughout the entire game, and sort of this ever-present threat of like these things that are going to come your way. I think it did such a good job with keeping that super central, because that was the original appeal of the first Dark Tower back in the 80s. And so you had to get that part right. And for our money, I really think they did.
Number 3 is going to be Everdell. They knew what they were doing with that big old tree in the middle of the board, and yes, it does have great table presence, but even if it didn't have that giant tree, I do think that Everdell would still have really good table presence. It's got really great Andrew Bosley art, and it was kind of the first time, I don't know if it was Andrew Bosley's first game, but it was definitely the game that put Andrew Bosley on the map. This is a game set in a kind of anthropomorphized woodland world, and you are a bunch of different animals, and you are basically trying to live in the Everdell Valley, and you are trying to build out your little city the best you possibly can. You are going to have critters and constructions, and those sometimes will go together, and they will kind of give you some kind of engine building, some kind of tableau building, things like that. There is worker placement in the game. There's a whole bunch of different cards, and again, the art is very beautiful. The board is this big like circle board, which you don't see very often, so that alone gives it like a lot of table presence. But the art and then just the boards and everything just give this game's just got a lot of table presence. And then you add in the giant tree. They made a big old cardboard tree that you can put in the middle of the table. It kind of can get in the way if someone's sitting on the other side of the tree, but if someone's on the other side, if you're playing like a 2-player game, it's really fun to have. It is kind of unnecessary, but here's the thing. We're not talking about like necessarily the most useful table presence. It's got table presence. You can't deny that. That tree is ridiculous, and I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I really do, because it's like, you don't have to use it. It's also nice that it was like, you don't actually have to use this tree if you don't want to, which I think is really, really important. Nonetheless, Everdell, even without the tree, again, with that art, with that big circle board, with the kind of tableaus of beautiful cards coming out, I just think it's got a lot of really great table presence. And then you just throw down that tree and people are like, what is this game?
Next up is going to be Andromeda's Edge. This is a follow-up of sorts to Dwellings of Eldervale, which also has great table presence. Andromeda's Edge is a big spacefaring game where we are going to be deploying ships to different sectors on the board, making use of actions, collecting resources, building buildings and more. And what's really cool is you have a really cool player board. They did a great job on their kind of big deluxe version of this with making minis for the different raiders and stuff, and your ships are really cool. Your player board has these different kind of modules you're going to be building out onto it. So the board, you know, your player area is going to kind of grow as the game goes. And it really comes down to, again, like the ships and stuff, because there are going to be these raiders, which are going to be neutral bad guys. They're going to be attacking any player they kind of can in the game. And there's a whole bunch of unique ones, and they have really cool builds and these stands and stuff. So it literally stands up off the table and really kind of catches your eye. And some of them are like gold and stuff. So they just really look awesome. And from a distance, you can be like, wow, that's really cool. The other kind of fun thing they have is the buildings you build are going to go on top of your transport ships. They're actually going to like kind of click in like a little puzzle piece. And then you have these leaders, which are these little kind of pegs that you're going to put into the buildings as well, so that you can now see that it's your building because it has your player colors and stuff. But like, that's just super cool that your pieces are going to get kind of like modified into this building piece, which is something that came from the Dwellings of Eldervale as well. And it just looks super cool where you have this thing. It's very satisfying to kind of put it together like a little puzzle piece to boot. And then, you know, you have this board. The board is growing as you go. It obviously takes up a ton of space on your table, so it's going to catch the eye, if nothing else, for its sheer size. But the pieces and stuff are really, really cool. So again, for, you know, especially a more deluxeified game, kind of thing, they didn't pull any punches, they didn't cut any corners, and it just really came out pretty beautiful.
Number one is going to be Fireball Island. Fireball Island, it's a gimmick, but it's a great gimmick. It is a big old 3D island. That is a kind of 3-tiered island. At the very middle of the island is Volcar, who is chucking out marbles at everyone. There's little minis going around. There's like big palm trees that will turn in the game because they can like kind of direct the marbles. And there's all these different paths that are going around the island because that is where the marbles are going to be moving down. And that's also the paths that your people will be walking on. This is a game where you're trying to get treasure while trying to not get basically destroyed by fireballs. Although if you do, it's not the end of the world. It's going to happen. But then eventually the game end will be triggered and you're going to want to get over to the helicopter to get off of the island so you can fully score all your points. There are vista points around the board where you can go and like take a picture and you get points for that. But mostly there's going to be treasures scattered everywhere and you're going around trying to get treasures. There will be a little bit of set collection with that, but it's all about the table presence. This game is really, really fun. It's just silly fun. This is not meant to be a very serious, high strategy game. And that's great. Not every game needs to be that. And Fireball Island isn't. And that's wonderful. But the table presence of this game is silly and ridiculous. Again, it's got a big old 3D board with Volcar sitting at the middle. How can you do better than that? But then as it goes, as the marbles are rolling through the thing, it makes a lot of noise. The whole thing is shaking, which is meant to do because it can knock people over and stuff like that. It's just fun. It's hooting. It's hollering. And then on top of that, it's just a really, really fun game. I love Fireball Island. If you want just silly, silly fun, it's hard to beat this game. It's really, really high up there. I just love it. It's so good. It's got great table presence. So those are our top 10 games with wonderful table presence.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know down in the comments below what games you think have really, really great table presence. Again, it's always so fun to walk by a game and just be like, wow, what is that?
That's nuts looking.
It's so, so cool. But no, that's going to be it for us. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you later.